get out of church and I would run across to the empty lot to go smoke a cigarette. She's like, we just got out of church. How could you listen? How can you go out and smoke? How can you? I would listen to the earthly music, you know. So I'm like, nah, well, I already did. Went to church, but then I started realizing, my way too. You know, how could I do that? How could I go to God's house and act that way afterwards?
Well, Armando, thank you for inviting us in your home. For everyone that is watching this today, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Armando Belloc, and I'll be giving my testimony for today.
Now, could you lead us in on how you grew up, your experiences, and major parts of your story that made you turn to Christianity up until the moment that you encountered Jesus?
First of all, growing up, my life was kind of rough. Grew up working on the fields, always moving from town to town. Uh, my mom first turned herself into God. She would always invite me to church and stuff. But I was in the worldly stuff, drinking, getting high, smoking, doing drugs, just going out. I was going to jail all the time, all the time. My mom would always tell me, when are you going to listen? You know, you got money, you got drugs, you got alcohol, you got car, you got friends. But when you're in jail in the hospital, none of your friends are there. Only ones there is your family and God. And I would say, yeah, mom, I know. And next week, there I was back in jail again. And just one day, the light just came on. And I'm like, wow, it's true. Uh, I'm broke, my friends are gone. I would go, I'll come payday, whatever I would get, I would spend it on bars and drugs or whatever. Next day, I'll be broke. And then I'm like, man, I should listen to my mom. Why would I would say that? But after the fact that the damage had been done. So just basically, I just started uh, staying away from everybody. Staying away from everybody. I would once in a while, like for my mom's birthday or Mother's Day and stuff, Christmas, she would say, I don't want no gifts. What I want is, I want you to go to church with me today. I'm like, okay, mom. I would go, but I would enjoy the worship part. But once it got to where the preacher would start talking, and then the preacher would get into it, and then they would have the person trying to translate it into Spanish, kind of gave me a headache, to be honest with you. And this demon started coming in my head. And another thing is, I never went sober. I would always have my beer, or do my line before I went to church, so I never fully went sober to church. But the demons would get in my head, and I would just leave. For what, my mom, my sisters were looking for me, and I was gone. Uh, and that's how I grew up. I always then growing up too, I was an altar boy, but when I was in church, I did run around doing the worldly thing. So I always believed in God, but I never really had a true experience with Him. I was like to say 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Uh, that's how I lived my life, and just one day I got tired. I got tired of it, and I got tired of the way I was living, and I felt like a nobody. Felt depressed, suicidal, tried to kill myself. Uh, and when I used to drink and get high, I wasn't a happy drinker. I was a brawler. I turned into an ugly person. I turned into a whole completely different person. I would want to fight my own family members. I would fight if you looked at me wrong. I was just one of those jerks. And little by little, my family started, you know, distancing themselves from me. And I kind of understood. Now I understand, well, who wants to hang out with me if they would have to watch their back later on that night, knowing if I'm going to hurt them or not hurt them. I was an ugly person and I didn't like myself. So little by little, I started asking God, to change me. And I seen little changes coming here, there. Uh, and of course, us humans, we always wanted it fast, like overnight, but that didn't happen. But I stuck with it. But you know, a little bit of church, come out of church, go drink, go to church, go to the bar before the night before that. So I was, just the way I see it now is I was toying with God. I was toying with Him, and God saved me a bunch of times from suicidal and uh, wanting to do damage to people. Like, man, sometimes I think about it and I scare myself. I wanted to kill people that had hurt me and hurt my family. I
Yes.
was
So you
was
mentioned that you were in and out of prison.
not prison, more county
Just
jails,
county
and
jail.
yeah, because back at this time when I was growing up, you did your time in the county jails. They didn't send you to prison, not like they do now. So I did a lot of stints in the county jail.
Okay, so you being in the county jail, did you encounter God in any way in there, or did anybody minister to you in there that made you think? Like, when was a time coming out of jail that you really started to change who you were?
You know, pastors would go, but I didn't want to hear it. I would I would blame God. I'm like, well, if there is God, I wouldn't be here. You know, always taking the focus off of me and putting it on somebody else. I never stood up and took accountability for myself. I always looked for a way in my mind to make it right. Well, if so and so wouldn't have been there or so and so wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have reacted the way I reacted. So I always looked for a way out. I guess just to satisfy myself and the demons in me. That's the only thing I can rationalize it. But I was a very bad person. I didn't like myself. I didn't like myself. And the way I encountered Him here at this church where we go here in Bethel, Cascran. Uh, Felia's mom would invite us to go to church. We would go to church, me and her, once in a while. But I would get out of church and I would run across to the empty lot to go smoke a cigarette. She's like, "We just got out of church. How could you listen? How can you go out and smoke? How can you?" I would listen to the earthly music. So I'm like, well, I already did. Went to church, but then I started realizing, my way too. You know, how could I do that? How could I go to God's house and act that way afterwards? So I had a while struggling like that for a while. And then another thing too, what would throw me off from church is when I would see people at church, how when the Spirit touches them, how they would act. I'm like, man, these people are crazy. I was like, what the heck am I doing here? I thought it was for show. So I don't know. I was kind of like in and out of it all the time. Believing, not believing. Then one day I just asked God. I said, God, I'm not happy with the person that I am. You know, change me. If if I'm here in this earth to suffer and live the way I am, hurting people, hurting myself, hurting others, why am I here? There's got to be a purpose for you to have me here. What is it, God? I don't know what it is. Help me. So to forward a little bit, one day the Spirit did touch me there at the church, and man, I'll just remember I fell to the knees and I said, Lord, I can't take it no more. Help me. You know, if you're there, God, help me. I don't want to live like this anymore. So that day, I just remember I was on the ground, I was bawling like a baby, just crying, and this sense of feeling just came over me like a house, a ton of bricks just lifted off all of my shoulders. And I felt that peace afterwards. And I had this feeling that I have never had with drugs, than better any sex, any better drug, any liquor, anything that I've ever encountered in my life. This intense feeling that I had was magnified by 1,000 times. I was so at peace. I was like, wow. And I remember I was shaking and I was sweating. I was sweating a lot. Then after, how people you see shaking and stuff, and that's how I was. That's how I was. And I'm like, wow. But I love that feeling. And that day, me and Feli were going to church, and I got some shoes. I just wore them for the very first time. And after the Spirit touched me, we went back and we sat down at the pew, and I'm like, man, don't feel to look at my shoes. And it's these shoes right here. So they were all blistered up on me. So they all blistered up. They were brand new the first time I ever wore them, but they were blistered up. And as I touch them, you can still see a little piece where it's just hanging off. Where I touch them, they just broke off and just fell. And I'm like, wow. And she's like, what are you going to do with them? Throw them away? And I'm like, no, I'll save them. I'm going to, for my testimony for one day. So that was my first experience with God. And Pastor Victor and his dad, Pastor Manuel, passed away, which we miss him. You know, may he rest in peace. They give us a lot of word of wisdom, you know. And let me backtrack before this. When I was in the world, when I was doing drugs and all that, when I was asking God to change me, I had went to rehab. I did detox and all that, and nothing worked because I would get out and I would still do it. So what I did, I started downloaded the King James Bible, and me and Ophelia would lay down and watch and just hear the prayers, hear the Bible through the phone, and that's how I was able to stop doing drugs, stop drinking, stop smoking. That helped me. So, and I didn't have to. It did with detox, hospitalizations, because I had to suffer also from bipolar. I got some mental issues too. So the Bible helped me get through all of that, which hospitals and doctors didn't. Then I don't know. A couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you guys heard. I got sick here a couple of weeks ago. I was in the hospital like for about 3 days, and I get in the habit now that as soon as I wake up, the first thing I do is I read my Bible all the time. I read my Bible, and I got up and I watched TV and I made coffee because I get up early by 4 or 5 o'clock. I'm up early, so I get up, read my Bible. After I read my Bibles, I do my prayers, and I'll come in and make a coffee and watch the news, And that day, that day, but the week before that, I had went to the doctor, and they had did a ultrasound of my heart, my aorta, my neck, my abdomen. Then they found out that I had a blockage on my right foot. So I had some blockage there in my heart, And that day, that morning, I was there watching TV, and all of a sudden, just like I don't know, like my blood pressure just fell down to my feet, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch my breath. I had a lot of pain in my chest. To be honest with you, I thought I was dying. Man, I remember I got up and I went into the room and I told Ophelia, call 911. I don't feel right. Something's happening to me. I don't feel good.
What was that like going through that? Did you think that you were going to leave your family behind?
Yeah, I thought I was gonna die. Right away, I started praying. I got on my knees. I said, God, don't let me die. If I die, I started saying, God, forgive me for my sins. Forgive me for everything. I told Ophelia, I love you. Forgive me for my, for if I mistreated you, if you ever felt I disrespected you, if you felt that I treated you any less, or for whatever the reason is, I wanted her to know that I truly loved her, and I wanted her to forgive me. And I started asking God, if don't let me die, please, God, don't let me die. I knew, I sincerely thought that I was gonna die. And I got on my knees and I started praying, and I started, forgive me, God, forgive me. If I die, please don't let me go to hell. I want to go to heaven. I want to be with you. I don't want to go to hell. I said, don't let me go to hell, God, please don't let me go to hell. And I told Philip, tell the people of the ambulance to hurry, because to me, it looked like I was just hanging on by a thread. I knew that any time, and I was trying to keep myself away because If I knew, I thought that if I let myself go, then that was going to be the end of me. And I didn't want that. So I kept praying and praying, and the ambulance came, and all of a sudden I went into seizures. I went into seizures. I don't know how many seizures I got. I don't know how long they were. I know they just came, swooped me up. They took me to the hospital. Hate to say it, but don't ever go to Cascran. Cascran, they gave me a shot and sent me home, and that was it. And when I got home, I was out of it. So Ophelia and my sister-in-laws, they took me I think my sister Letty, she was there too. They took me to the hospital, and they admitted me in Chandler. To be honest, I don't remember. I remember seeing them. I don't know if they stuck around. Well, I knew they stuck around, but like when I was I was like in and out. And like I woke up, I was on the CAT scan table, X-ray table. I was like in and out, and I could just hear the doctors. He's going in AFib. He's going in AFib, and that kind of scared me. And then what's weird is that when I felt I felt like I was out of the woods, I said, "All right, God, you got me out of it." And I don't know, Satan came into my mind and brought something into my mind, and God instantly reminded me, bam, and I started going down again. I'm like, no, God, I don't want get him out of my mind. I don't want him in my life. Get him out of here. You got the power, Lord. Get Satan out of here. I don't want him in my mind. I don't want him in my thoughts. I don't want him in my life. I want you. I want you, God. That's all I want. Then again, I felt the presence of him coming and relieving. I was there for 3 days. They did another test, and everything came back negative. But I do want to share with the people from the church that it says in Romans 14:11, for it is written, as I live, said the Lord, every knee shall bow to me and every tongue shall confess to God. And that's what I did when I was scared. Also Romans 10:13. It says, for whoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. And these, what I'm reading to you right now, I just barely seen these like last week in church. As we were talking about it in church and having class at the Bible study, we started with the mosque. These started coming in. I started, like Romans, like I say, like Romans 14, 11. It says, for it is written, it says, I shall live, the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to the God. Also, 1 Corinthians 2:3. It says, because like I said, as I was dying, I started crying, I started confessing to God. I got on my knees, I got on my knees. I bowed to God on my knees. I confessed to him. I asked him to save me. And then on 1 Corinthians 2:3, it says, as I was with you in weakness and in fear, no, and I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. So it's like, wow, everything that happened to me that day, it was being revealed to me. But God, God is with us there all the time. He's with us. He never leaves us. Also, Proverbs 31:10. It says, Proverbs 31:10 also says, like I said, when I was going through that, I was asking for a failure to forgive, for forgiveness for whatever pain, sadness, anything that caused her. Proverbs 31:10 says, who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. And I understand, I got that. I got it here at home. I don't need to be looking nowhere else in the street. I have it here at home. God proves it to me every day. Every day. So my message is to people that are out there suffering drugs, alcohol, depression, any kind of sickness, seek God. If He was able to save me, which I consider myself a scumbag, a piece of crap, to me, I think I deserve to have died and gone to hell. But if I know if God could save me, man, He could save everybody. But you have to humble yourself. You have to repent and truly submit to yourself to God.
Amen.
And also being as a parent, I see it also too. Uh, as a parent, we want our kids to listen to us. We want our kids to be better than us. We want them to have more than what we have or we could ever have. And I see it now. There's two ways. There's you can keep living miserable. You can live with the devil. You can keep living miserable. You can keep going to jail. You keep going to prison. You can keep in the hospitals. You can go to hell if you take that wrong path, or you can take the path with God. And with God, you're gonna have love, peace, everlasting life, love. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Take the right path. Choose God, and everything will be all right.
Wow, that was beautifully said. For the last part, if you can pray for those people that are out there struggling, and for the people in our church who need that encouragement, could you just say a quick prayer? That way we
Yes.
can end it off in that way.
Yes. Father, I humbly pray to you today. I ask you, Father, if there's people that are listening, watching this video, just as you saved me, God, just as you've seen that I'm worthy, and that you suffered on that cross, God, for us, which we don't deserve to live. And you don't deserve that punishment that you took for us, but you did it for us because you love us. I ask you, Father, that you please, whatever they're going through, if they're at that end of their rope like I was, and they're in that dark tunnel, shine your bright light on them, Lord. Shine that light on them and guide them towards you, Lord. You're there for them, Lord. Just seek them, and we rebuke all devil that's in them, on their home, family curses, whatever it is, Lord. Only you know what they're going through and what they need, God. I ask you, Father, that you please save them, and they reach out and learn your word.